Hi, everyone. Welcome to Soul Empowerment. I'm Nancy Stevens, co-host with David McLeod. We are really happy to be here with you, sharing and teaching and listening to all things doing with the development of your soul, body, mind, and spirit. That's our whole area of life mastery, is to work on all of these places within us to help us be better citizens of the world and extend healing and goodness as we learn to care for ourselves, live authentically, move through all of those places. And for those that are live and those that are listening, I will say a little plug for next week is the Wellness Universe Soul Treat taking place in the Art of Living Retreat Center in beautiful Boone, North Carolina. I am going to be attending there as an experienced provider, along with lots of other vendors. If you can't make it this year, which I think tickets are done, put it on the books to attend next year. It's an amazing in-person experience that is healing. You collaborate, connect, receive, and give. It is just a key piece for the Wellness Universe. And David and I are getting ready to, we can't share much yet, but we both completed what will be our piece in the next upcoming Wellness Universe self-care book. So stay tuned for that. And today's show, the Secrecy Trap. There we go. It took me a while. So we're going to be discussing on all things secrets we keep from others and ourselves. And we're going to unpack that.
Yeah, right. Well, thank you, Nancy. My name is David McLeod. I am your life mastery coach and author of the book, A Life to Die For. And as Nancy mentioned, I'm also one of the co-authors in the Wellness Universe Guide to Complete Self-Care. I have been fortunate to be a contributor to all three of the previous books. And now, for some reason, Anna wanted me to be a contributor to this one, which is all about 25 tools for goddesses. So needless to say, I'm a little bit intimidated to write something that I
You're goddess. You've got the goddess touch.
I hope so. But I did write my chapter and I submitted it, and I haven't heard any negative feedback, so I guess it's all good to go. So that's going to be coming out, I think, sometime in December, right, Nancy?
Yes. Yeah. Right before Christmas. So put it on your list. I'm very excited about this one, not just because we're in it. It is just going to be an amazing handiwork with stories and tools to help everyone grow, heal, expand, and become their best self. So I'm really excited. And I am a goddess. You're a goddess as well.
Of course. Yeah, of course. Well, I like to think of us all as divine beings, which
we are.
Encapsulates the same thought, I guess, if you like. And by the way, I just want to mention, if it looks like I'm not looking at the camera as much as I usually do, it's because I had a problem with my regular laptop. It crashed on me today, and I had to make a quick change. So I'm now using an iPad, and this is my first time using an iPad, so I'm a little bit fumbly with some of the buttons and stuff. It doesn't operate the same as my computer. And also, the camera's over here, but my image is over there, so I'm being distracted, So please forgive me. I'll do my best to try and look into the camera so it feels more like I'm talking to you directly. Anyway, Nancy, you mentioned, yes, our topic today is called The Secrecy Trap. And I think that title by itself is a pretty provocative title. It gives a pretty good indication of what it is we want to talk about. And, I think, Nancy, I don't know about you, but in my case, I know that there have been things in my life that I have really not wanted to share with the general public. I've held them in the background. I've hidden them. I've avoided telling the truth about certain things. And I don't know. Have you had a similar experience in your life?
I would say I'm human, so that would be yes.
You're a human goddess.
I'm a human goddess that likes to occasionally found herself keeping secrets, just based on where I was in the season of my life, based on just many dynamics. I don't think there's a person out there that doesn't have or have, has to have a secret, so to speak. And it doesn't need to be like a deep, dark cover up secret. It's just really a secret is things that you are not wanting to disclose. It can be just a very personal thing with you yourself or, other stuff. But yeah, very fascinating.
Yeah. And I don't know. In my case, there have been certain events that have happened in my life that I'm really not proud of, that I maybe even carry some shame about, or at least I did. And what's interesting about that is shame itself can become a very heavy thing to carry. The more shame I was feeling anyway, the more I was disconnected from my other feelings. And shame was a way for me to kind of hold myself back and hide out. And although I was just trying to hide this one little thing that I was not so proud of, in effect, by hiding that one thing, I tend to hide a lot of other things as well. And consequently, many more items that are maybe not, have no reason to hide, become caught in that same, that same mesh. And consequently, I don't show up authentically. I am putting on some kind of armor or protection or a mask, if you like. And I'm not talking about the funny looking mask that everybody seems to be wearing today. I'm talking about the psychological mask, pretending to be someone else in order to be approved of, in order to be liked, in order to fit in, all those kinds of things.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a common fabric of a secret, is feeling that by withholding, people won't, quote, perceive you as being a certain way, or by denying it from yourself, then maybe you don't have to deal with it. So it's just such a complex thing. But yeah, the more, and it's a lot of work. I think looking back, when I have kept secrets, it's so much work, it's fatiguing and emotionally draining to keep a secret. And then you have to keep adding on to that secret. It's not really ever a one and done, because if the dirt kicks up and it comes back, then now what? Yeah. So in my family, we just had a secret thing occur, and it's almost, I was like, okay, are we all playing the game now why are we keeping this secret? What's it supposed to mean? So, yeah.
Well, it's interesting. You brought up a good point. It becomes heavy. It does. It kind of, and it's not so much like a weight as it is like a chain or something that, or an anchor that's behind you, and you're trying to move forward and you're lugging along this anchor, and it's just slowing you down. It prevents you from, really blossoming and showing up in your life, and it keeps you from showing up authentically. The idea of keeping a secret, like when we're kids, we're taught, hey, can you keep this secret? I just want to tell you something, and I don't want you to share it with anybody else. You know what I mean? Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. So can you keep a secret? Well, okay, sure, I can keep a secret. But when the secret becomes too heavy, then what do you do about it? What happens to your body? What happens to your emotions? What happens to your psyche when that thing becomes too heavy? I know for me, because of, the secrets that I tend to keep are the ones that where I feel some shame about having done something, shame about how I showed up, whatever it might be. And so I just don't want to reveal that, And now on one level, shame can be okay. Shame is something to say, yeah, I really messed up there and I got to do something to clean it up. That's great. That's the way shame should work. But when it's something that causes you to withhold truths about yourself, in effect, you're kind of lying about what's really true. What happens is it gets heavier and heavier and heavier, and then it becomes toxic. It can actually start hurting you physically, emotionally, spiritually, in every way. And the only solution at that point is to find a way to unburden yourself. You have to find a way of releasing the energy of that secret. And in my case, I found the only way I could do that was to tell somebody, which means I had to tell somebody I trusted. And that just saying it, just getting it starts the release process. So that's been my experience.
That's yep, that's a beautiful share. Yeah, I think anytime that we withhold from ourselves or feel that we are unable to share, we make, like you said, we make the secret take front and center in our life, and we spend all of our time, I call it, on damage control, or trying to put out any fires, or keeping that over there and then living your life here. But you're always looking back at that secret. I don't want anybody to know. I better protect it. I better do a side dance. And so you almost become a master of disguising, living dual lives. Your life away from the secret, but it's always there. And then the secret. And then you yourself have put such energy into keeping the secret that it becomes larger than life. And maybe you've made it way more than it ever was when it initially started. It's taken on a life of its own.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's part of the experience of a secret growing to the point where it's too heavy to bear, too much to bear.
Yeah. And that's just not, the few times in my life when as I was growing and developing, want to keep it, don't tell anybody, because I don't want them to know how, whatever inept I am, or that I really can't do this. So I'm going to just dance around that. I'm just not going to speak up or, say anything, because I don't want them to, by looking at me or whatever, that they'll know my secret, that I'm really not all that. So then what you do, then you make it more. Yeah, it's just like a double-edged sword, or it's just a situation that doesn't have a good outcome ever. I'm trying to think. So we have a situation in the family. It's not a big deal, but so there's two ways to look at it. A family member got a divorce. It happens all the time. I don't know any other particulars, but it was, the mother did not want anyone to know that this family member got a divorce. We weren't supposed to know. And well, inadvertently, in a conversation, it came up. I had no clue. It just came up. And I'm like, I said, wow, I'm really sad. I'm bummed out. And then I was talking to my mom, told my mom, and she got really quiet. Well, you weren't supposed to know. I'm like, what do you mean? What was I not supposed to know? That was a secret. I'm like, okay, well, if I wasn't supposed to know, the person to tell me, what's the point? Well, it's just really upsetting, and they just don't want anybody to know. I'm like, okay. And so she proceeded to tell me, don't tell anybody, and let's not say anything to this person or that person. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So.
I can understand how people want to have some privacy about certain events.
Yeah.
That's fair. I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
We don't have to go around broadcasting whenever anybody gets divorced. We don't have to do that.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, as you say, divorce is something that happens. Excuse me. We all go through relationships which at some point or another may come to an end. And is there any reason for us to be ashamed of the fact that a relationship came to an end? I don't think so, personally. But some people hold some shame in that. They see themselves as failures, or they judge themselves harshly because they didn't do enough to keep the relationship going, or whatever the story might be.
Yeah,
and the
whatever.
truth is, you may have done all you possibly could to make that relationship work, and it still was doomed to fail, if you like. I prefer to think of a relationship as having a life of its own.
Mm-hmm.
It's two people come together, just like, you're on two completely different paths, and all of a sudden one day you come together and you say, wow, this is really nice. And so you stay together for a while. Well, how long do you stay together? Well, it might be a day. It might be forever. It might be a lifetime. It might be multiple lifetimes if you believe in reincarnation and stuff. It might be forever.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? The longevity of a relationship is not a metric of how successful the relationship has been. really, I think the metric of success in a relationship is, did you learn about yourself? Did you grow as a human being? Did you expand? Did you become a better person? Now that you've learned something, every relationship gives us an opportunity to see aspects of ourselves that we might not otherwise see if we weren't in that relationship. That's the reason for being in the relationship in the first place. So, did you get what you came for in this relationship? Yes. Well, then honor it, bless it, and say thank you for the relationship, even as it's coming apart. Even as it's coming to an end. But holding shame in yourself for not showing up the right way, not accomplishing enough in the whatever your story is, that's not serving you. And what that is doing is it's putting you in the position of saying, I don't want people to know about this because I don't want them to see my shame. That's really what it boils down to.
So if a person, so let's say I'm given information by somebody. I wasn't being nosy or going out of my way, but somebody told me something, and then they said, please don't tell anybody. Now, in some ways, maybe they needed to vent and they don't want anybody to know, perhaps because of potential, real danger or whatever. But in other ways, when they say, please don't tell anybody, they just had to let somebody that they trusted know. But then they're like, you've got to be business as usual. I mean, again, I have that guilt or shame or feelings of whatever that I can't have anybody else know. You're the only one I can tell,
That's fine.
Yeah.
I think that, so as a coach, when I'm working with people, I automatically hold everything in confidence. I don't share details about, my interactions with my clients. And that is obviously by design. I want them to feel safe in sharing with me whatever they need to share. And so confidentiality is quite common in that kind of a relationship. Now, if I learn something from a client that I think is beneficial to somebody else, I might ask permission to share general information about that situation to somebody else I know who's struggling in a similar manner. I won't name names and I won't give any particulars, but I want to help them as well. So do I have your permission to share the generalities of this situation? More often than not, people will say, oh, sure, go ahead. I trust you. But I can see when someone says, please don't share this around, what they're really saying is, I don't want this to become public knowledge. I'm asking you to hold it in confidence as a friend of mine and I can honor that.
Sure.
Unless it is something that involves potential danger to that person or to somebody else.
Oh, yeah.
In that case, I will say, no, I'm not going to hold this information. You have to take responsibility for this to do what you can to make sure that person that you're worried about doesn't get hurt. And if you won't do it, I will. I will call the cops or whatever it is I have to do. Yeah. So, and I tell people this up front, when I'm working with them as a client or as a coach, I should say, I tell them that sort of thing up front. Anything illegal, I am not going to hold in confidence.
Yeah.
So if you really need to share about that, go to a priest.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely different. I guess we went the other spectrum, but as far as the if I'm either I'm withholding, if I'm giving it, I'm not going to let anybody know. I'm not going to let anybody see my shadow or whatever. Or if I share something and I'm like, don't tell anybody. So maybe from my own personal perspective, if I share something and say, please don't tell anybody, maybe I simply felt comfortable enough with that one person. But again, there's a lot of shame or guilt. And I only, that's all I can do at the time.
Yeah, and that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. Just as I said, just sharing it, even if it's only with one person, might be enough to release that burden.
Yeah.
And you yourself, if you've done that, if you've shared with one person, you might find the courage to then share in a more general way with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you'll just completely liberate yourself from this burden, because you'll
Yeah.
discover in the process of sharing that you're not alone. You're not the only person who ever had this experience. You're not the only person who has felt what you're feeling right now. That's the beauty of sharing. I'm not saying to share it in a public forum, you know. I'm not saying even to share it in a private forum. Find people that you trust. That's the real thing. And share it with them.
Yeah, I guess that would be step one of beginning to get released from the secrecy trap, is having the courage to find a safe person to share that with. And it could be, sometimes back in the day, they have like either probably online talk radio, and people will call in anonymous, be anonymous, and they would share stuff. Maybe that was their initial bit of courage to share something that they just did not feel comfortable with people in their circle. I mean, that might be an extreme one, but that's not uncommon for people to do that. But yeah, that would be a step one. Instead of constantly using all of your energy to keep everything, keep the lid on, to travel it, give it to one, and then see what happens.
Yeah, I like your example there of maybe somebody called into a talk radio show and shared. Isn't that amazing that, maybe hundreds of thousands or even millions of people heard the story? They don't necessarily know who said the story, but that is a powerful way of unburdening yourself.
It is.
Now, of course, there is a possibility that someone listening might recognize your voice, and it might come back to haunt you if you do it that way. So I personally wouldn't recommend that as a first choice. However, if you have done some work on this beforehand, like for example, let's say that you had been sexually abused as a child or something. And of course, maybe it was somebody in your family who did the abuse. And consequently, you absolutely are terrified to share this with anybody because of the potential repercussions. And you've been terrified since you were, well, let's say 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 years old, or whenever it happened, and you've had this really, really strong urge, and you were maybe threatened. So consequently, trying to break out of that years later, like when you're in your 30s or 40s or something, especially when this is having an impact on your current relationship, because of the fact that you got sexually abused. Maybe this is inhibiting your ability to be to connect and be intimate with your partner, and your partner has no idea what this is all about, and you're not talking to him or her. So consequently, it's having a real strain on the relationship, right? The irony here is, if you would just tell your partner, 99.999% of the time, the partner would be totally compassionate and supportive. Now, of course, there are people who might take advantage of that, and you don't necessarily want to just blurt it all out and share it in that way. But what I'm saying is, the moment you find someone that you think, or that you truly believe you can trust, and you share that truth, you already start to feel yourself opening up. And then you can maybe get a little more braver and go into a support group of some kind, and find out that there are other people who have had the same kind of experience that you had. And all of a sudden you realize, wow, these people seem like pretty okay. They're pretty solid. They've done a lot of healing. I want some of that. And that's kind of how support groups work.
Well, what's coming to mind, because we had in our family, that the AA or AA meetings, where maybe for quite some time a person struggled with alcohol or drug use, trying to keep it a secret or just whatever, and then obviously it comes out, and then them thinking, I'm all alone, nobody gets me, I'm just floating in space. And then if they go to that first meeting, they have to be very honest. I mean, they stand up and say, say your name and, hi, I'm an alcoholic or whatever. And that alone, that admission in front of people like you, is really can be very healing.
Right. And one of the beauties of Alcoholics Anonymous and other 12-step programs is that they're quite happy to have you just sit in the group and say nothing until you're ready. There's really no pressure. So you get to listen to other people, and you get, just by listening, I believe, you become vicariously more courageous. And as a result, you soon find that place in your body that says, yep, today is my time. I'm going to stand up and speak my truth. And if all you say is, hi, I'm David, and I'm an alcoholic, and that's it, you've made a huge first step. And I'm not talking about alcoholic. I mean, you could be a sex addict. You could be a gambling addict. You could be a shopaholic, whatever. If you're in a group like that, and you just meet other people who have a similar kind of issues, you can completely open your own little secrecy trap, start revealing these secrets and unburdening yourself. You know, Nancy, I was going to say, ever since I started doing my deep personal growth work, starting in 1995 or whenever it was, I think I have shared every single secret I have ever had to at least one other person. And consequently, I just don't feel like I need to hide anything anymore. Now, you know, at first, I might just share this thing in a private group. But then once I realized that the energy of that, whatever it was, that pain, once that energy is gone, it becomes much easier now to share it in a more public environment. So I have since, you probably read some of the stories that I've written and some of the things that I've shared. So you know that I have shared a lot of stuff in public now.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid to do it anymore because I know that people will judge me or they won't judge me. It's up to them. You know, but they may learn from my experience. And that's really all I'm trying to do.
Okay, so that's another thing about when we're withholding in the form of being in that secrecy trap because we think we're going to be judged or we're guilty or we're just making it all about ourselves. What we finally, hopefully, reveal is healing, not only for you, but you're giving space for others to connect with you compassionately. You're giving space for others that you don't know. You can't tell by looking at somebody, by having shared your area, that now you've given them the ability to maybe start their own journey. So what we withhold from ourselves from that perspective of, oh, it's all about me, I'm, can't let anybody know. As we begin to learn the process of letting go, we are actually, as we heal ourselves, a double gift is we're giving others the gift to show up authentically. And that was my biggest learning, was having people, when I was busy withholding because I was so fearful that I was going to, lose it. When people shared with me, it made me realize that I had the ability that I could share too, that when you shared, nothing happened. Because maybe you also think, if I tell everybody I'm going to lose all my friends, people are going to, think I'm a nut job or whatever, and I'm not going to have anything, which isn't true. It actually brings you closer together for those that you're really meant to connect with, that you otherwise couldn't have had if you're so busy protecting or hovering around, your secret, that pain point or that thing. So it is very liberating and freeing, and it helps others. It brings you more connection and more authentic, like you said, more authenticity. So, right. And it's hard. It is hard to make that first step and open the lid on the secrecy trap.
Right, absolutely. I think you hit on a very, very good point, which I'd like to just amplify a little bit because I think it's very important. I remember when I first considered the possibility of sharing some of the things that I was holding within that I had so much shame about. I remember feeling abject terror. The idea, God, if I share that, they're going to think I'm such a jerk. I'm an asshole. I'm this, I'm that, I'm the other thing. They're never going to talk to me again. I'm going to die alone. I would just amplify it and make it a huge
Of course.
story, and yet I could hear other people sharing some things which in retrospect were actually, I would have probably felt a lot more shame about them had I had those experiences compared to the shame I was feeling about my own experience. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Realized, wow, these people, and by the way, I did not judge them harshly when I heard them sharing. I could just feel my heart reaching out to them. It was a really beautiful and powerful experience of like instantaneous compassion, So the experience that I had was the moment I shared my secret, people all seemed to look at me with that same sense of compassion. They all expressed their love and their kindness. There were no words of judgment. There were no threats of "I'm going to leave you" or any of that stuff. It was the exact opposite to what my ego mind had been telling me was going to happen.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. And this is what the beauty of it. So the process of unburdening yourself, releasing your secrets, one way or another, is contrary to what your ego mind is telling you to do, but exactly what your soul is begging you to do. So you listen to your soul. It starts now to blossom even more. Mm-hmm. And we're all about soul empowerment. So this is a beautiful technique to help you get into more soul empowerment.
Yeah, that actually, I really connect with everything that you just shared. And here's another layer of the secrecy trap. Usually when we're withholding, thinking that we can't release something because we're embarrassed or shame or guilt, most all of that, it is because we have not yet learned to fully love ourselves. And if we don't fully love and appreciate ourselves, and we have this more energy that's dark and heavy, we're going to have that stumbling block. It's as also the other process of learning to, share is the piece of feeling comfortable and secure in your soul, which is the piece of learning to love and accept yourself for who you are, your shadows, your assets, your attributes, your idiosyncrasies. That was a big deal for me to feel comfortable sharing things about my life when I learned to love myself. That was a big missing piece in my life. I didn't want people to know. I don't feel anything. What do you know? I guess I had shame that I wasn't showing up, but the whole area was not yet, the fourth chakra, my heart chakra was not yet fully, I'm still developed, wasn't fully worked on. And so that's the other piece of just dispersing and releasing secrets, is loving yourself for who you are. And then moving
it's interesting. Everything that we talk about here ultimately is about self-love. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, that's really the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
And yet, isn't it ironic that society teaches us that loving yourself is not a good thing? That makes you selfish. You have to love everybody else instead. You have to put everybody else's needs and wants ahead of your own. This is the message that we're constantly being given. The greater good of the outside.
Yeah, I was raised with that. That definitely raised with, love other, serve and love everybody first, take a back seat, be humble. Humility is the essence of a life well lived, being humble, taking the back seat, never sharing. I was raised with, don't ever share. That was another thing I was raised with. Don't ever, quote, brag about yourself. That is a very negative trait to stand up and say, hey, I got an A on my test, or, I don't know. Just don't ever disclose your assets or attributes, because you're being an ass. However, Yeah. However, there's a way to shine your light that doesn't have the, the arrogant, assertive ego, ass thing. I mean, yeah, there's plenty of that, but I think that is old energy that we are on the cusp of bringing in new energy with it, which is a deeper, authentic love, getting away from how we were taught and raised. Put everyone else first. Everyone's needs comes first. You put everyone first and you be last. That's love. How can that be though?
Well, isn't it interesting? If you think about this for a minute, if everybody observed that rule, then everybody would be trying to be last.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
Nobody would be first. It's such a stupid way of thinking when you really meditate on it, that it just makes no sense at all. But there's another thing here that you're talking about that I think is important. The admonitions from society and from people around us, especially our parents and our friends and our teachers and all the rest of it, how we're supposed to behave, how we're supposed to make ourselves second nature. I think that the intention behind that is to keep us from becoming too full of ourselves, so to speak.
Yes.
Not from from an egotistical perspective, right?
Yeah.
And that's really what we're trying to do, is prevent the ego from getting overblown and
Yes. I see that. Yeah. I mean, I understand how I was raised. It was to keep you, to supposedly mold and shape your character so that you would be a person of upstanding character by doing the things you need to do to be successful and responsible and fit in, but not going out of your way to showcase by broadcasting, look at me, I made this much money, I have this many pieces of real estate, I've got this many, I'm in this many groups. Like, that was considered really lowly, not good. Oh, don't fall into that. But yeah, but maybe the intent was stay humble, put your head down, do the work, stay humble, do good things, but don't broadcast them.
Right. Absolutely. And the irony here, again, and more irony, is that true self-love, I believe, means honoring all aspects of yourself. Not and we've been talking about the secrecy trap and trying to release that and so forth. But honoring yourself means to honor and recognize all the beautiful, wonderful qualities that you have and the skills that you have, and not trying to hide them. I agree. It doesn't mean, in some circumstances, if someone says, tell me a little bit about your skills because I'm in a job interview, well, then I better tell them about my skills.
Yeah.
Especially the ones that are relevant to the job I'm looking at. But if I'm out riding my bike with my friend and we're just having a nice ride, and I say, oh, by the way, I have 42 pieces of real estate. Did you know that? Now that is bragging at that point. It has nothing to do with the bike ride. It is out of context completely, and it's strictly something about stroking your own ego. So we know the difference between the two.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. And true self-love, I believe, is honoring all the qualities, the skills, the capabilities that I have without necessarily broadcasting them. At the appropriate time, if someone needs to know, I'll tell them about it.
Well, here, if you think about the upcoming book that we are both co-authors in, we are asked to share our personal story to help the reader feel supported in their story, and then share, a tool. So it's the same thing. If we were honoring, quote, keeping everything a secret, we wouldn't be authors in that book, because we would not be able to share our story. I know the first time I was asked to write down my list of assets and attributes, I really struggled. Or I was asked to write my bio. Oh my gosh. I was like, I can't do that. Who am I to showcase what I've done? That's brag. That's blah, blah, blah. I mean, I just had to work through. So it really was a challenge for me to do that. So because it countered in some ways how I was raised to keep a lid on it. Don't, even though we know the bio is for people to know you. It wasn't like a brag thing, but that's so knowing that, discerning the difference between sharing when it's appropriate and or out of context, and how are you sharing it? And also, you have to know, am I sharing this so I can be acknowledged, seen, so I can be loved? Am I sharing it to help? Is it in the context of a certain organization, meeting, or meetup? So we got around that there, but yeah, where were we going with this? So the secrecy trap. So a key to lifting yourself out from under withholding is to maybe ask yourself, when you feel that tingling of pulling back, not showing up, if you can just say, what is it about this that I want to withhold, not share, go into, fade away? What's going on? And you have, and that's loving yourself to ask yourself that question rather than just moving into that. I think you have a good way of describing it, moving into the feeling and letting that be your marker.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I think that we could actually, that would be a great exercise for people to do.
Mm-hmm.
Take a journal, something that you feel comfortable writing in, and something that, it's your private place. And ask yourself this question: what are the secrets that I am trying not to share? What are the things that I am withholding from the world? And just itemize them, one after another, however many things you can think of. And when you're done with that, then go and look at each one and ask yourself, which one of these really feels like the strongest thing that I have to withhold? Talk about the energy. How do I feel about this? What does my heart tell me when I think about this situation? And do I feel fear? Do I feel anger? Do I feel shame? What do I feel when I think of that particular scenario? I don't know what the situation is, but maybe one of the things that you're ashamed of, let's say, go back to the example of sexual abuse. Maybe one of there's two possible things that you could be really ashamed of. One is you harbor desires of getting even with the person who did this to you. Getting even in maybe about how you're feeling like to get even with that guy. But the other thing that might be causing shame is I actually enjoyed it. And that's part of the problem, is sex and sexual interactions are quite enjoyable for many people, even if it happens under those terrible, terrible situations. So you may have some shame about the fact that your body responded and said, wow, this feels good. Even though you knew inside that this was wrong, it should never have happened with this person, and so on. So you may have some shame about that. Just write it down. Get that out of your body. Get that whole energy out of there and onto this paper so you can see it. And then you can decide, all right, now that I see it, what's really, really true about me?
Mm-hmm.
If this situation happened, I was 6 years old, I was 8 years old, whatever. It should never have happened to me. I did not invoke this. I did not create it. I was a victim. Well, by holding this a secret today, you're still victimizing yourself. And now it's time to release that. It's time to let it go. Once you've done this, you've done a little journaling on it, you might get a better sense of what's really going on for you, and you might feel a little more courageous about sharing something.
Oops, sorry about that. Yes.
Are we late?
Yes, I know. I have text notification on my laptop And I cannot figure out how to take that off. So the secret's
well,
out.
I had a text message come through on my iPad, which I've never seen before. So anyway, with all of that, I just want to say it's a process. Don't expect to be liberated 100% from all your secrets just because we said, let it go. Letting go is a process. It's not an instantaneous action. But
it's a journey. It's a journey
with an intention.
Yep. It starts with you. I think we always go back to this, giving yourself enough time to start to notice if you are repeating the same behaviors over and over when a trigger, you get triggered, or a certain scenario comes up. If you notice you're always feeling the same way and you don't like the way you feel or how you respond or what you do, if you're noticing a certain set that your safe place, you always seem to go there, and you want to change, then that would be step one. Simply noticing how you are with yourself and others when triggers come up, or secrets or information, and from there, giving yourself permission to begin to go inward, to ask yourself in a loving way, what about that has brought up these thoughts, feelings, and emotions? Being able, loving yourself, that you have the right to ask yourself, because only you really know the deepest one. And yes, there is definitely a platform to work with a credentialed coach such as David or myself, or also getting therapy as well. If you have a trusted confidant, that's an option too, but you definitely we all owe it to ourselves to be released from the secrecy trap, because there's a whole amazing life out there when you get out from under the what could be the heavy burden of spending all your time and energy protecting the quote secret.
You got.
I've got all kinds of noises. Something just dropped.
Yeah. Well, that's all right.
Today.
Yeah. So I love what you were just saying, and this is a part of the idea of self-love, is to acknowledge that you are indeed worthy to heal and to have a fully expressed life. Every single human being on the planet has that right. And it starts with you. Remember, part of our life journey is to come into the world from the spiritual realm and into this physical world, all full of piss and vinegar and all excited about life, and then to maybe have certain things happen that maybe just distract us from our true purpose. And we may have forgotten our true purpose when we arrive here. And we learn all these conditioning tools and everything else that keep us from showing up fully.
There is a bird in my office right now.
Oh, sorry. Really? This is the bird of paradise. Has flown into your office to provide some additional wisdom.
Sorry. What is that? Okay, there's a lot of layers going on today.
That's great. That's fine. So I'm just saying that. So you owe it to yourself to try and raise your level of awareness, as Nancy said, in every aspect of your life. And if you're keeping secrets, you might have good reason to keep secrets for now. The question is, how much are those secrets costing you? What is that secret preventing you from doing in your life? How is that secret holding you back from showing up fully? And because ultimately that's what you want, is to show up fully and just to let your heart blossom and your soul lead your life.
Yeah, versus having the supposed secret lead your life. You're wanting to step out from under that and incorporate that supposed secret in your life and live fully. no longer being led around by the well-worn habit pattern of staying in that place. There's just, yeah, that's available to everybody that lives here on our planet Earth, so to speak, to give themselves the access to show up fully in love. Yeah. And that was so my friend and I had a conversation yesterday based on the aspect of love. And when you find a place where you're comfortable with yourself in love, then you automatically give that, and you are able then to incorporate and just share things that come up that maybe in the past, again, this, I can't let anybody know. I'm going to keep that a secret. Don't pull the lid off that. And there's such a big difference when one person is in bed with their secrets 24/7 versus somebody who's liberated from that and just incorporate that's just part of the human condition. It doesn't mean that they're less than, better than, inferior, superior. It's just part of the human condition, that fabric of emotions. And
I just had a little brainwave as you were speaking. It's kind of like when you are held back by secrets, not only does it feel heavier, but it also feels darker.
Yes.
So that when you release them and free yourself from them, you become enlightened in two different ways. First, you are physically lighter. You can breathe easier. You can just walk around. You feel like maybe you can float. But you're also more illuminated because you're not preventing your inner light from shining anymore. It's a beautiful process. So this is a form of enlightenment that I encourage everybody to participate in. Unburden yourself. Eliminate your secrets if you can. Get rid of as many as possible. And
it is very enlightening. It really is. And like I said, am I completely secret free myself? No. However, I'm in a good part of my journey of being comfortable in wanting to release more secrets, like not having that heavy gripping of, looking behind me at every turn. And it's allowed me to do the work that I'm doing of being on this show with you, David, our co-hosting, and writing books. So had I stayed in bed with my secrets, there is so many things I would never have had the opportunity to step into and illuminate and shine my light.
Well, let's be clear about this. The opportunities may have been there.
Yes.
But you may not have seen them or grabbed onto them because of that state that you were in. And this is true for everybody else. It's not until you get out of the secret trap and you start looking at your life in a new way that you might recognize, oh my God, I missed out on that opportunity because I was holding this secret. I've seen this in my own life. I've looked back on the past and I've seen some of the choices I've made, and I realized, yep, I made that choice because of this and this and this. And I would never have been able to do that if I hadn't done the work necessary to release the secrets in the first place.
Exactly. Well put. I might need to cut off a little bit early because of the special guest flying around in the house.
Well, I was thinking that, it's felt like a really good and complete conversation already.
Yeah.
So, and plus, you're heading off to Soul Treat here in a couple of weeks now?
It is next week.
Oh, really? Is it next week?
Yes. Not this week. It starts 1 week from Thursday because we have our opening ceremony there.
Well, I hope you have an absolutely fabulous time. I hope it's just a really, really amazing experience. I know the other two that I've been to were brilliant workshops and retreats, and I know Anna always does a great job. So I'm looking forward to hear from you. Well,
maybe we'll do it. What we learn, what we gather from there, we'll incorporate that into our next one of our upcoming soul empowerment shows.
Sure. Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. It's been wonderful discussing, sharing, and opening up really good energy about releasing and moving forward.
Yeah, thank you, Nancy. As always, it's just fabulous. And I just want to remind folks, the recording of this will be up on my website at yourlifemasterycoach.com. So feel free to head over there and watch all these shows, leave comments, and let us know what you think. We appreciate your impressions and your perspectives. So bye-bye for now.
Thanks so much, guys. Until next time. Bye.